what's up? Rafael Cortez here, back on the CEO Pulse podcast, where you get the real, the raw, and the mind of entrepreneurship. I am sitting down with my good buddy, JOHN TRAUTMAN. We met not too long ago. However, I think we built up a pretty good friendship over a short period of time. Honestly, I look up at everything that you're doing. I think you're one of the role models to follow. Not just because you're doing a lot of stuff in some of the most competitive areas, right? But also because of the character that's behind all that stuff. So I'm very, very happy to have you, man. Thank you for taking the time to be with us.
Hey, that's very kind, nice words. I appreciate that. Like, seriously, I got an immense amount of respect for you and what you do as well. So thank you for having me on, sincerely. So good stuff.
Absolutely, man. Of course. I had the opportunity, took the shot, of course. So, John, just a little bit of background on you, and I want to hear it from your words. But you're the owner of the Real Estate and Knowledge Institute, right? You guys specialize in commercial real estate. Now you have an education. You've actually had it for a while, but now you're really blowing it up, the education business, and showing people how to come in and break into the commercial industry, which I think a lot of my audience is on the real estate investments world. Mm-hmm. And the natural progression is wholesaling, then fix and flip. But I think one of the crown jewels, it's commercial.
Yeah,
it's one of those things that's almost unattainable, unreachable. To some point when you're starting up. However, based on the conversations that we've had in the past, I mean, you have this model that just works. And I mean, you just come up with deals all the time. So I want to break into that. I want to break into the mindset, the psychology that it takes to get, from point A to point B, and then see the big picture first off, and then put it all together and then execute, which is wonderful what you're doing. So
yeah, I appreciate it. If I back up real quick, I co-founded it. We have a couple partners, or I have a couple partners. So it's a joint effort. Mm-hmm. And also, it's just like we have a community. So we have a community of investors. I call them team members. That's all of us, from the coaches to investors themselves, whether they're seasoned or new. So wanted to clarify that first of all. See,
that's what I'm talking about. Character, man.
Well, it's it takes a team to get there. So as far as commercial real estate goes, I've been doing commercial real estate for about 10 years. But when we first started the education, we just focused on a couple buckets, mainly fix and flip. It was just, it's where the market, we started about 5.5 years ago, mm-hmm. and it's where the market really was focused. I was doing a lot of commercial real estate, and at some point someone was like, hey, you're doing so much commercial, how come we're not teaching on it? And so I was like, yeah, maybe we should. No one else was out there in the industry, so we started talking about it and doing some introduction to it, and then it's you look at it now, and it's a huge piece of what we do. On my day-to-day, it's not. I do have like single family stuff working, but the majority of all my stuff is commercial, and it has been the focus. There's huge opportunities in the market right now to convert different asset groups. Like, for example, converting office, like what we're in, into multifamily, mm-hmm. right? Things like that. Or we're seeing hotels and motels they're also being converted into multifamily or longer term rentals. So stuff like that. It just depends on what assets you're looking at. Warehouse, specifically in this market, Phoenix market, is hot. So manufacturing is at an all-time high here. So trying to find warehouse space for, warehouse is technically going for more than office, but there's so much more that goes into an office building, four walls and a roof, right? But yeah. It's just the way the industry is. So just like our education courses have shifted and they move, just like the market moves, so our education moves along with it. So we just try to stay nimble in what we're doing, and that way we're not sitting there teaching stuff that was like yesterday's model, right? Mm-hmm. It's one of the big things also is that if we're teaching, and the teachers, it's a big thing to me, is if we're educating, it's important that we're also in the field doing it, because let's face it, this market right now is very fluid. Things are moving, and everybody's waiting for some sort of shift. Like, what's the next move, right? So
Yeah.
I'm not trying to anticipate. I do some minor calculations in it, but we try just to jump in when we see opportunity. So anyways.
Yeah, no, I think staying nimble. I mean, you hit a really good point there. It's a lot easier, right, to pivot when you stay nimble, when you have intentionally stay nimble. You look at opportunity, you can switch from one to the other. One thing that you're really good at, and I know this because we've had conversations. I used to look at real estate like this until we started talking, but it's repurposing or looking at what's not necessarily there in commercial. In single family kind of stuff, you have to look at what's there and then just bet on what's there, right?
Right.
But you have this whole other process of coming in, then looking at the opportunity, the potentiality of that building in commercial, which is a big opportunity that I think doesn't present itself in residential. So I mean that goes. It goes to show, right, the capacity of what commercial can be versus a residential, which is just the industry that at least I'm exposed to. So it's really cool to come in and then see that, have the ability to pivot and shift from one aspect, to a whole different thing. And yeah, I mean, I think if you can't stay nimble, it's a lot harder to turn a carrier, right, on land than it is.
Yeah, well, I think as far as like in commercial staying nimble, like here's the thing. What I see this trend when I first started. So I've been investing for almost 25 years now. So the first 15 were specifically, fix and flip. A lot of the burst strategy, and then once in a while I'd spit out a wholesale deal unintentionally. It wasn't my model; it just would happen. And then once you start getting into commercial, I think what I first noticed was there was a very specific seller, and these buildings were usually for lease and for sale. I started with office, and I quickly identified executive suites were probably a sweet spot because it was the bottom of the market, basically. 2000, I guess 10, 11, and there wasn't a lot of demand for office. Let's face it, we were in a recession. So what I started doing is executive suites back then. Not a lot of people were doing them. We have about 50 of them in the Old Town area, and what we noticed was, what specifically like. Bringing some of the elements and some of the skill set that you get from doing residential fix and flips was not necessarily brought into the commercial space. There's been this big barrier of entry into commercial, and really all that is lack of knowledge and understanding. Because if people understood how much easier commercial was to do, they'd be doing it, and a lot more of it. Residential is much more competitive. You actually have to do so. Your attention to detail is so particular, right? It has to be, and you get picked apart on it and whatever. And if it's a rental, it's a little bit different, but then you have tenant rights and stuff like that. On commercial, it's a lot simpler. You're basically giving them a shell. They're doing probably some TI work. They're doing longer term leases, like 5-year plus leases, right? You just have to really dial in the exterior and make sure that's something that someone, are they going to want to come to work here every day? Is it nice enough to have good curb appeal where they feel good about where they're going? That's one of the key things that I think of. And most of the people that were owning real estate prior to really didn't focus on that. They were just like, set it and forget it. Nobody wanted the spaces that we were picking up. We got a lot of seller financing. We still do. It's one of the benefits of doing commercial. Because on a house, when you buy a house, you get qualified off of your personal income. Now, do they take your personal credit and assets and stuff into consideration? Sure, but it's not weighted so much. It's weighted on the asset itself. So, like take this building for example. If you go to buy a building like this and it's not producing income, you're almost going to have to pay cash for it because you underwrite that asset and that asset's producing nothing.
Right, it's a negative.
Yeah. So then. We negotiate probably 70% of our deals then with seller financing. So we get seller financing, pretty good terms, and then what we could do is get it all cleaned up and then go to a bank and refinance it out and refinance it, and usually take the money that we put into it and take it out.
So it's almost like a burst strategy, just on the commercial aspect, right?
It's exactly what it is. But there's so many. So here's the nice thing: when you have a seller for a house, you have a commercial lender and whatever you have. It's a very an emotional purchase for someone, right? Commercial, it's not like you could be selling to a bigger fund and things like that. And sometimes they spend money and they're spending money for you don't know what the reason
no
is.
emotional
really.
attachment.
There's
to
no
it,
emotional attachments, but they may be paying way over for your particular asset. And that's always a nice thing too. So, plus, again, if someone doesn't pay, the process is a lot quicker and easier to get out. You don't have to do as much detail work inside. The list goes on. But yeah, I love the commercial side.
I think there's a misunderstanding or maybe lack of awareness, right? Because the residential side is saturated. I mean, we know that there's so much competition in it. If you're fixing flipping, if you're wholesaling, if you're doing any of those strategies, it's gonna be saturated. There's 100 other people doing the same thing that you are, so
Right.
you somehow, some way have to make it to the top, right?
Right.
And that's how you survive. But commercial, it's I don't want to say it's a blue ocean because it's not, but I mean, there's just a lot more room.
It's about as blue as this in here. It's pretty blue.
It's pretty blue.
I think that. So you're right that I always say the natural evolution in real estate is like you start off probably, doing like residential, obviously, and then you could probably go to the commercial, but the multifamily could be a duplex, tri or fourplex.
Right.
That's usually people staying there, and then they may get out of their comfort zone and go to a bigger, 10, 12, 20 units, whatever it is, right? But they don't cross over into the other asset classes.
Well, I think it's daunting, right? To think about, all right, cool. I'm gonna think commercial. I'm gonna think a warehouse space. I'm gonna think offices and suites and all kinds of shit like that. And so somebody who's used to flipping, a 3-bed, 2-bath.
Right.
And I mean, from what you're saying, and at least what I'm seeing is that the difference in the amount of effort and the process is a little different, right? But it's not it's doable.
It's very doable, and I think you're right. There is a transfer of knowledge when doing it. Like when I first got started, I was very scared. I pulled the trigger on. Technically, it was a house converted into a few suites, and so we were able to carve it up and do executive suites. And then that was August, probably 2010. It could have been August 11. Sorry. And then I ended up. It was in August, so very hot here, and it filled up within a month. We actually had a waiting list. So then I went out and found another one and another one and another. So it just kind of did a domino effect. And then once we leveled out, it was like, okay, well, what's next? Like, let's look for something bigger. And then we went to like a 15,000 square foot, and then we got into medical, and then just kept pushing it, right? So it can be daunting, and I do understand that. And we we partnered with a mentor that was huge in the commercial space, and they would partner with us and kind of help us push that envelope. And they do, huge Amazon centers and stuff like that. So it was cool to extract that knowledge, and we did that for a handful of years until probably, 3 years ago. And we've just continued to push on and do, more and more stuff. So I think it's just about getting confidence and then understanding the market and then understanding what you could do and having multiple exit strategies, and then strategies to even find out if you have a asset that's worth anything.
If there's anything there, yeah.
So what I typically do, like anybody watching, like you could lock up a property, and then what I do is I'll go to like a 99 Designs and I do a mock-up on the actual building, and then I'll market that building just to see, like, maybe should I do it as office space? Should I do it as, residential? Should I do it as whatever, co-working space, retail, you name it, right? So you have different concepts or different facades of what it would look like, and try to market those and see what appeals to people the most. And then,
so where you get traction the most is that, so you'll market this basically the mock-up or the opportunity, right? Different ways of structuring it.
So I'll give you an example. We just did one. This is a real scenario. It just really happened, and we just relisted it today. So I'm just going to give you an example. It's not atypical, so I got to give you those disclosures, right? I try not to sell our commercial real estate. I have a partner on this, and he wants to leverage up, so he does bigger stuff. So I'm like, all right, let's do it. So we had a warehouse that we bought, we put under contract, and we did get seller financing because it wasn't, it was ugly, plus it wouldn't have cash flowed at all. He rented half of, two of the spaces equaled half, and then there was one bigger spot that was the other half. So 3 units. He was pulling in about $3,500 a month with half the building. And then we ended up, we negotiated, it was $1.1 million with, it ended up 90,000 down, call it 100,000 down. So we financed $1 million. Our payment was, or is, $5,350, right? So we're negative. And then even if we rent out the other space, it's like, for that amount, it's like we're barely making money. This is something to kind of look at when you're looking at commercial real estate, is when were these leases done? Are they on month to month, and are they even close to market price? And they weren't. So we did mock-ups. We took it to market the second week.
So at this point, you have an underperforming asset, basically. It's what's happening, right?
We have a massive underperforming asset, but we think it's just because it's massively under market, too. And it was in a decent area as far as warehouse goes. So what we did is we did the mock-ups. We put it out on Craigslist, of all places. And we ended up at, what did we get? Like 70 cents a foot on that. So it came out to, just that one suite came out to $6,300 or something like that. And then we went to the other two places, other two tenants, and got those raised up. So now it's at, 12,000 and some change. So 12,000 from 3,000, huge difference. And our payments $53.50 or something like that. So huge difference from 5,000 to. Now here's the key for investors. Some of you guys already picked this up. How many houses would you have to do to put $100,000 down on something and have your, $5,300? Now, I know I still owe taxes on that, but $5,300 to $12,000, big difference, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I'd have to do a lot of residential properties to kind of probably make up that, unless I'm doing VRBOs and I don't want to, or Airbnbs or whatever it is. I just don't want to get into that debate on this particular spot right now. I'm just saying, set it and forget it. It's pretty good money, right? And now that makes it easy to refinance. But here's the nice thing is when you go to exit on these properties, these things, warehouses are trading at crazy cap rates right now. So we paid that 1.1. We put a new facade on, cleaned it up, got the stuff leased up. Not a ton of money, and it went on the market today for 2.3.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So what? 3 months later.
Yeah, huge difference. I mean, it's night and day. I mean, the difference between residential and commercial. And again, it's something to. I wasn't aware of that space. I knew commercial. I see the buildings, stuff popping up left and right, and especially in Phoenix. Like right now, a lot of it's getting developed, right?
Yeah.
But my mind wasn't there. I just hadn't opened that door yet. And now just driving around, okay, cool. What can happen with that commercial building?
Yeah, well, especially you talk about Phoenix, and I know a lot of people probably aren't from Phoenix on here watching, but when you look at your city, I'm just going to talk about Phoenix in general for a second. It's the 5th or 6th largest city, but it's got the most infill opportunity, in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
There's a huge underdeveloped amount in downtown here. So to be able to pick up stuff still, downtown, it's crazy. The prices are still inexpensive, and the opportunities and stuff that you could get with seller financing. And like on this building, we got 9 months, no payments, right? We got seller financing and 9 months, no payments. So there's just, rent still due. No, I'm just playing.
Rent still due.
No, we,
Well, it's good to know.
they're just, it's for the sellers. I want you to understand the psychology of the seller in these opportunities. So typically, these people are unattached to the asset itself. They built these things 30, 40, 50 years ago. They've owned them. They've been in their families. They've produced and done what they've needed to do. They know that there's heavy lifting to be done, meaning the deferred maintenance. They need to give it a new facade. They're not in that space anymore. They don't have the time, energy, and effort. Typically, their kids, if they have them, are not interested. The realtor hates taking the calls because they're going to show it, and the thing is tired, and there's just, it's hard for people. You guys, investors that are watching this, it's hard for people to see through the work that you do. So, that's where you guys make the money. It's no different than in commercial. If you just look at it and go, okay, this would look better if I did these 3 things or 5 things, whatever it is, and just typically whatever you would do on the facade of a house. It's no different, right? So if you look at it like that, now here's the psychology of the seller. They're not emotionally attached. They're typically like, if you think of your grandparents, right? Think of them wasting money every month, how much that would kill them, because they're still writing those checks, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like they putting the stamp on, doing all that stuff. So if they're paying like for the maintenance, the taxes, the utility bills every month, that's killing them to do it. So I know that, just I could respect it. So when I'm negotiating seller financing, I'm appealing to that, but I don't need to even point it out. I don't even need to point out that, hey, but I'll just say it, right? You no longer, Mr. Seller, have to worry about writing those checks every month. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and put some money in your pocket. I'm also going to take this, maintenance and tax thing off your hands.
Big burden off your back, yeah.
And it's ugly, so I'm going to go ahead and fix that problem too. And the last problem is it doesn't cash flow. I'm going to take care of that problem too. So, people say, well, what if you default? Yeah, crappy for me, great for them, right? They got money in their pocket. Someone else cleaned up that asset. Someone else, rented it out and has been paying everything.
Right.
Who wouldn't want that back? I mean, that's a model in a lot of franchise worlds, right? Where they let the franchisee do all the heavy lifting, and then they do seller financing. If they end up with it back, who cares?
Right.
Very similar model, but you're just appealing to their greed factor that they don't want to write those checks. So you'll find opportunity in that all day long, and you could get away with it with doing as little down as you want, right? So this is where I've found success in this space, in commercial specifically.
I think the model actually overlaps quite a bit. The conversations are similar. You're just looking at a different pool of sellers, right? But I think some of the conversations are similar. Mm-hmm. Of course, you have to know the ins and outs of how to structure a commercial deal, which is different than residential. But some of the bigger principles are the same, right? At the end of the day, you're talking about providing a solution to a seller. Mm-hmm. And yeah, you're right. I think there's a lot of people that feel they're bleeding money when they have these big the backpacks of on their backs, right?
Right.
In terms of maintenance, upkeep, people breaking into stuff. Heck, I just had a friend buy a commercial building not too far from Central Phoenix, and it got broken into, I don't know, like 4 times during the same week. It's crazy.
I'll buy it.
Yeah.
Oh,
So, no, it's I think it's the natural progression, right, for anybody who wants to come in and then move to the next level in terms of investments.
For sure.
If you, in my head, it looks like this, right? The lowest entry barrier to real estate investments, I think it's going to be in the wholesale side. Mm-hmm. You come in and then you wholesale, and then you cash in some money. They fix and flip, usually the traditional way. And then you're right, people move into multifamily, buy and hold, kind of build a portfolio and whatnot. A lot of people get stuck in that space. But if you open it up a little bit, you get fancier on the flips. For example, you said you flip. Like I've seen your flips. Like they're not okay, a single family in the 200,000 range. You're talking like millions. Like those are big fat flips. So it's
There could be big fat headaches too sometimes.
with big fat checks.
Could be.
So I mean, it's moving into those stages, right? But I think the natural progression, like in my head, I mean, it makes perfect sense. Like you have an idea what the model looks like. You're already trained for those conversations. As a real estate investor, so why not move and tap into something that's blue instead of bleeding red all over the place? It makes sense, man. I love it. So you've been in real estate investments. You said 25 years, right? You've been investing in real estate 25 years, and 10 of that have been in real estate. How? What was that like? When you got started as an entrepreneur, and then you tapped into it. Well, what was your mindset like, and how has that changed? From day one to today.
Yeah.
Looking back.
So I was in finance at the time, and I just knew like I was working crazy hours, and I probably don't have that glamorous story where, I just quit my job and I went into real estate. That wasn't I was very safe. I had a family, so I needed to provide. And so I balanced it. I was lucky enough to have like a split schedule. So on my days off, I would go do real estate. And when I did finance at the largest car dealership in the state in Washington. I was like 23. And, you do people's paperwork all day and you see who's making money. And clearly real estate was a phenomenal vehicle. And you could see like people in different, in different stages of real estate and how, I just remember a guy walking in. He's younger than me now. He's, I believe, 40 at the time. And he was retired and came in the middle of the day and it looked like he was like doing gardening. And I said, well, what were you doing? He was like, oh, I was gardening, and I saw this car drive by, and I was like, oh, it must be new. So I came down the dealership to buy it, and I was like, oh, is it your day off? And he was like, no, it's just I got started in real estate, when I was, in my early 20s, just buying, which was basically, wasn't even necessarily the BRRRR strategy. It was just buy and hold, right?
Yeah.
And so these, in like 18 years or whatever it was, he ended up paying all of them off because he lived off of his job, and then everything he earned from his rentals, he just continued to pay them down until they were paid off. And I was like, God, what a great concept! Like he's young and he's got all this money coming in. And I think about him every once in a while. I wrote about him about that story in my book. It was just kind of like one of those aha, like you don't have to go out and slay dragons necessarily. You just have to take these steps. And it was a very comforting way to get into real estate where I was like, okay, I really want to get into this. So I went and I met this guy, Reggie. Reggie helped me get a property under contract. And then my father-in-law, he ended up becoming a partner on it, and he would fund it, and then we would actually technically do the BRRRR strategy. He would pay for it, and then pay for the rehab costs, and we were buying them for 60 cents on the dollar essentially, and then we would refinance him out and make him whole, but he'd still stay in the deal, right? So we did that between that and fixing and flipping for about 8 years.
That's pretty creative in terms of structure. Like it's a pretty creative way to bring cash in when you don't have the cash to do it yourself, right?
Yeah. So and a lot of people go, well, are you mad? Like that kind of sucks. His family and he took advantage of you. I don't know. I don't look at it like that at all. I tell people if I had the wrong mentor when I first got started, I probably wouldn't be in real estate today. I mean, maybe I would, but it's hard to say. Like, it's why I think, I always talk to the coaches, like we need to always make sure we're doing our best because the messenger could get in the way of the message. So we need to always make sure that we're, on point and not, every call, every session, every conversation, we just need to make sure we're 100% present during it because if we're missing something and someone messes up or decides not to do it. And sometimes in the beginning, when it was myself and Julie just started doing the coaching, because it was people would just come to us and they'd say, will you teach us? And when these were usually friends, and we'd spend all weekend with them, and those people still, to this day, don't do real estate. So don't spend 3 days with me and do real estate. What I mean by that is, like, I think, like, for us, it was simple, but we were making them drink from a fire hydrant or hose, right? It was like way too much information, and it just shut people down. And so what we learned, Erica, we started working with her. She's runs the coaching now. She's so awesome at it. But she's like, no, you gotta, just a task.
Baby
like,
steps.
Yeah, like go do
steps.
these 2 things, and then it's like, wax on, wax out. What do you mean? This is all I have to do? Yeah, just go do this week. Small tasks, right? So we learned that, and we try to keep things in perspective with the people that we're working with. But anyways,
you're completely right. I think, especially when somebody's coming into something new and they pick a coach, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that coach has a responsibility to like you said, do the best they can. Right. Also, the risk is there. If they get a shitty coach, if they get a shitty mentor at the beginning, they're not going to get the full picture of what that opportunity could be. Right. Mm-hmm. We're talking about real estate, but it's the same thing. I mean, if somebody would say that, I don't know, you're in high school and you want to wrestle, and you have the potential to become the best wrestler in the world, by the time you're 20 years old. If you get a shitty coach in high school, like a bad wrestling coach in high school, you're going to hate wrestling by the time you're done with the semester, right? So that opportunity is gone. And I think it's one thing that as coaches, it's, in the education business, especially, at the top of the funnel per se, right? When you're getting people that are getting into the industry, the business, or whatever your strength is, we have the responsibility to look at it that way. All right, cool. I have to paint the best picture, the best approach, be, conscious about the process that it takes to get somebody from point A to point Z, and then perform, right? I don't think theory only goes so far.
Right.
I think, you gotta have, you have to dig the trench and then go through that in order to become the person that can actually come in and coach and train somebody else.
Yeah,
So.
I was lucky to have Carl, is what I was trying to get at last. Sorry, but yeah, he was a phenomenal coach, mentor. He ended up retiring at the age of 42. So he got the market trend. He got into commercial and went into condo conversions, right? So taking apartments and converting them to condos. So he did that in the Pacific Northwest a ton of times. So it ended up being very lucrative. And then it still took me a long time to get into commercial. And he wasn't the one that got me into it. Anyways, I saw a lot of commercial people do very well. It was almost scared me. Like, oh, that's too big. That's too much money.
I don't know if I can do it, or
yeah, like I don't know where to get started. And so on that point, there's only a few of us that coach on it, right? And we try to do so much. We try to keep things really tight. So myself and Trent do a lot of like the funding stuff around it. So we'll because funding's a big piece. If you can't get seller financing, or maybe like a lot of investors that are like doing big stuff, they're like, you do a lot of heavy lifting. I'm not interested in that. I kind of like doing the heavy lifting, so I don't mind it. I also still go after the dogs as far as, the fix and flip houses, right? So it's just one of those things. So anyways, as far as the commercial stuff goes, it's where was I going with that whole thing? Sorry, I'm off now. Where was I going with that?
well, you were talking about mentoring, and then
the funding part. So if you can't get seller financing and stuff like that, what my point being is, like, sometimes there's just really good performing assets that you just need to get funds for. And so that's the other bucket that we focus in on now, getting people funding. And we've gotten into that pretty big, especially lately with the market. It's just kind of shaking out some stuff, new opportunities, which forced us to go find new funding options. And that's just taken us in a totally different direction. So now we have people all over the country coming to us for funding. And, oftentimes people are saying, well, would you just partner with us on it? And we'd rather do that, especially when it's just span of control. Like, how many properties could we take on commercial? It's much easier to work with people. So we do a partnership on a lot of stuff. And we'll bring what we're good at to the table. And if they could bring some of that, I would say heavy lifting, boots on the ground type stuff, and we'll show them and teach them what they need to go look for and all that good stuff for, the inspections and show up for tenant showings and all that, whatever it is, right?
Yeah, it will. I mean, it's an opportunity to grow, right? But I think collaboration is slowly but surely replacing that competitiveness of thinking competitive on in the real estate investments field. Slowly but surely. Yeah, on the residential side, I know it's here in Phoenix. We've been able to create, especially in the wholesaling world, in my space there, we've been able to create this collaboration culture. So instead of coming in and then competing with each other, we help each other. Like me helping competitors, which sounds, if you would have told me that 4 or 5 years ago, you're crazy. That's not how it works. But the results have been exponential. Yeah. In that space. So I can see the same thing happening and working in the commercial industry, man. It's like an elevator as opposed to a staircase, right? It's not one person, getting ahead. One person gets ahead, and then just kind of everybody goes along with it.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Like the investors, we all kind of go after the same kind of assets, I guess. It's in the residential stuff. I have a ton of friends, and I have friends that are in the commercial space now, and some of them I've helped get to that space, and they're kind of the competition, I guess, as well. But I've never seen it that way. I just don't. There's so much business. You can't do it all. Yeah. And to have that mindset, I think, says a lot, and it will probably keep abundance from coming to you. And the people that you see, I think, the ones that you think on social media would be the less are exactly them, and it's. And I'm okay with that too. They're probably not they're not the people I want to do business with anyways, right? The people that are open-minded, that, just want to do deals, just want to, go out, have fun. You can make money while you're doing it and get creative. And you have all these different outlets that you could plug into. Plus you get to meet cool people. It's all about networking, getting to know people, and collaborate. And I do a ton of different deals with different investors, right? Investors will bring me in on different deals, and wherever your strength is, they'll say, will you come help with this? And for doing so, we'll give you X. Sure.
I totally agree, and I see you doing this emphasis on design. At least for what I can see in the building that we're in, I'm actually one of your tenants right now. This thing used to be a storage room.
I like this space.
yeah, I'm extending my lease.
I'm just kidding. You did a great job, man. Seriously.
So. I walked into your office upstairs, and I was like, "Man, this place is perfect." But you do put a big emphasis on design, and I want to kind of highlight that because, for example, we have a mural going on the other side. We have there's something else happening on the other side of the building. Mm-hmm. So there's so many things just changing, and it's somewhat eclectic, right? It's different. How do you think, or how do you feel like that impacts the success that you're having? Do you think it's something that's necessary? You got to think outside the box, or have your own twist into things, because you definitely put your personality into the stuff that I've seen you build. So,
I don't know. Even on residential, I like to make it stand out. I want to make if it's typically my model is, if I'm doing a flip on a residential, I'm usually taking those profits and putting them into a longer term asset as far as commercial. Like the warehouse we're selling, I very seldomly do that. I don't like to do it, but there's a lot of equity that could go into a much bigger project and spit out bigger multiples. But you could leverage it. So, but anyways, back to the question, as far as doing stuff, I don't know. I just go back to if I don't feel good about the building and I wouldn't want to work there, I don't want to. Then it's not probably. Who else is going to want to work there? Yeah. So this building's obviously special to me. It's our Reiki building, but and back to your point, like, there's a lot of real estate people in this building, and cool, like, great. I want it to be known as the real estate building. But as far as like putting your own special touch on it or whatever, yeah, I want our stuff to stand out. It doesn't need to, be noisy and that. It needs to be tasteful and done clean. And I think that's primarily what we do. We're just trying to bring things up to today's standards and give it a good look to where the tenants are like, hey, this is a cool place. Or like, if I want to open up a business there, I feel good about it. And if I'm not putting out that type of product, why am I doing it? It doesn't. You don't have to do things so extreme and commercial where it costs a ton of money. Like, in this particular building, we spent some money, but it's not anything what people would think, right? Mm-hmm. You could do things for inexpensive and make a big impact without, devastating or depleting your wallet. And so, to me, again, the mural things, we started doing murals because I bought like the ugliest building on this block. And I was like, what do we do to make this thing stand out? Because this is an ugly building. I mean, this really, it was an ugly building. So we put a big mural. Otherwise, I could put different siding on. I could have opened up window, just done stuff that was really unnecessary. Or I could just do a mural for less money, make it pop, and everybody goes and gets their photos in front of it. That's when I realized, like, okay, we could beautify something just by using paint, bringing in some good artists, and have them do their thing. On this building, it's a little unique because there's a message behind it. But, and it's my creative outlet. So if I'm not doing a residential flip, I still get that creative outlet, something that I get passionate about.
I love that, man. You actually play in real estate. I think there's so many places in real estate besides people think real estate, investments, and all this stuff, and then automatically kind of revert the thinking to paperwork and structure and deal and spreadsheets and all kinds of stuff. But there's so many places where we can come in and play, and really just like you said, let out the creative outlet.
The paperwork stuff.
Well, you have a couple of things going on in this particular building that I think are insane. For example, you built a whole gym underneath, like the one level down, it's like a whole gym, and super cool stuff. Then you have the murals and the design, and it's just, I think it has that stamp, right? And it calls for attention, I think, to say the least. Also, you're always, for example, posting, current projects, and you come in and then you put that stamp on things. I think at the end of the day, it's a good opportunity, right? Not just in the traditional real estate, but if you tap into different things like commercial, like why not? Why not make it your own? Why not make it your signature? Put your signature on it. That sort of thing.
Yeah, another thing, just to that point, like I'll bring residential people to my properties, designers, and I'll just pay them because I learned a long time ago. I don't have it all figured out. I don't know it all, but it took me a while to kind of check my ego. I could figure out most. Being honest, I could figure out most projects, but I'm just like, is this the highest and best? Is this the coolest design? Now that I've got it figured out, let me bring in like Justin Novak from NVK Designs. I'll zell him money and say, come to my project, just walk it with me. He'll walk it and say, this is what I'll do. Yeah. This is what I would do. And I'm like, oh man, yeah, that's actually better than my idea. He's really good at it. I'll give him credit on that. Like he's great at it. So he usually could get me to see something slightly different or totally different, right, than what I had in my head. And I like that. I really do. I sit there and I'll sit with it for a week and think I have it perfect. And then someone like that comes in and it's like, I do this, this, and this. And you're like, oh, that's actually better. So parking the ego is what I want to say, and bringing in someone else to give you a different aesthetics or look to a project is always good. Like, it's just good to get second opinions. I see people that copy us on, we have literally a block for the most part, and there's a couple pieces missing in between, and then they'll copy, but they just cut short, right? And you're just like,
you can tell.
Yeah, and you're just not going to pull the same, right? Yeah. You'll get whatever. If we're full, you'll probably get the leftovers, but you're not getting the premium we're getting, and probably, the demand and the tenant. So at $100 a door, if you could even get $100 more per door, and you have like 10 doors, it's still $1,000 extra,
Right.
a month. It is.
Yeah,
what it is.
it's totally worth the going the extra mile. It's not even a mile. It's just going the extra.
Yeah.
Right. To bring it to the top. But I mean, I think it's one of the things that you're very very good at doing. And it shows, man. And it shows. It shows in the quality of the products that you're putting out there. I wanna pick your brain on two things. One is going to be vision. The other one is going to be the mindset. You were talking earlier about
Listening, sorry.
yeah, you were talking earlier about how it was when you were first getting into commercial, and how you were thinking, like, you know what, this is big. I don't have. I'm afraid. That those thoughts. Your mindset has obviously shifted. You also said that you were very safe when you were in the financial world. Now it's far from safe, right? Or it may look like it's far from safe, but you're taking educated risks. However, the mindset, it has obviously taken a shift. So what does it take to get to the point where you're at? Coming from a space where you were playing it safe, quote unquote, on on the things that you were doing, and then now it's just blowing it up with bigger buildings, bigger projects, and putting more on the line.
Sure. I could only talk about where I'm at right now, and like I said, I work with people that are doing much bigger stuff than I am, like just crazy big stuff. So for me, it's just about the process, just like how I talked about when we do coaching with students, and the students kind of like you stair step, go do these two things this week, and this maybe the following. Pretty soon, like you're flipping a house, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that process is how it's been. I started with these executive suites, and then did a regular office, and then got into medical, and then some retail, and then some warehouses, and then
Just keep stretching the comfort zone, right?
that's exactly what it was. It was like, wow, I can't wait to own a 10,000 square foot building. And it was like, 20,000, 30. And so you just keep climbing up that food chain, I guess. And pretty soon, like, you've just ended up doing a lot of different stuff. And then through that experiences, just like if you're an investor and you're watching this, you've done enough deals, how comfortable you are at just doing a deal. You may you may not be doing inspections. You could probably write it up sight unseen. You already know the area. You know what you're going to be getting into. You just did a house next to it. So it's just one of those things. The more repetition you get, the more success you have, the more confidence you have, and it still is calculated risks and stuff like that. I don't necessarily chase deals. I'm very cautious about what I do and what I get into. I'm also pretty disciplined on what we do with the properties and how we, what we do with them once they're rented and stuff like that. So I don't know. It's just one of those things that I guess success comes with time. I guess you could say I'm successful to a degree in the commercial space. It's all relative to what you're looking at. We've done pretty good here in the Valley. With the more experience comes the more confidence, really is what it is. So, and then sometimes it's just other people's confidence in you. Like, we get a lot of different looks at, people bring us commercial deals pretty much every day. So just like in residential, you get all these different deals to look at. If that's one thing that's slightly unique, if you guys are listening and want to get into it, you may work with several different residential agents. I only work with really one commercial agent. It's a very, very, very small world, and you got to gain their confidence, and you got to execute. Because unlike residential, commercial's small, and if you retrade or basically keep backing out of deals, no one is going to want to work with you. So I try to make sure our deals are buttoned up front, and unless, like we were talking about the deal when I walked in, I just went to go check it out. We put it under contract. It was $14,600. We went out there, walked it, and we decided to measure it, and it's, about 5,000 square feet short. Like, big difference.
That's a number,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like you're a third off on it. Like, okay, it makes a big difference on where our price is, so we'll have to adjust accordingly. But anyways, it's one of those things that it just over time, I guess, you just get more and more comfortable with. Like we partner with doctors now. It's another thing. Like if you guys work with or know a doctor and the doctor has multiple practices, maybe partnering with them because you're able to reduce their overall. I say you could help them reduce their financial footprint and participate in the real estate. That way, if they sell their practice, they still have income coming in from owning the properties and stuff like that. So usually that stuff's appealing to them. And if you could partner with doctors and say, let me think and let me go find these other assets for you. You don't even have to change your current business model.
Yeah.
Right? They're usually pretty happy about it. And medical, I think, is going to be something that it will continue to grow in this country. There'll become probably more and more funding for it, not less. So
I think so. Medical is we see medical plazas opening up left and right. I mean, that goes to show. So that's now vision-wise, it's hard for somebody to come in and then see the idea. Right.
Mm-hmm.
See the idea of, okay, cool. I want to have a big ass warehouse. I want to do this and that. How did that? And I know you were talking about taking the steps little by little, just kind of progressively. But what would you tell somebody who's say that they're already investing in the real estate, residential real estate world, and their feet are wet in there, but they haven't made the leap or really considered seriously, jumping into something commercial. What would you tell, somebody who's in that space?
Work with us. I mean, seriously, I'm being serious. Like, just come work with us and we'll help you through the process. We do a lot of partnering with people. Mm-hmm. I think it's something that it takes that heavy weight of I'm taking on this massive. Again, I'm not teaching anything that I haven't done. I mean, I partnered with people that showed me the way through a lot of different deals, and they did some crazy big stuff. And now it's been 10 years, and so now we get to do the same thing. They came in on once I was doing the executive, and we're like, hey, this is a really cool model. We'd like to participate with you, and we could help scale your business. We didn't want to do it. We didn't want to do it in the beginning, and I think they were pretty persistent about it, and I'm glad that we did. We, and it worked out, and it has worked out really well. But yeah, I think navigating through this space, there's a lot of different ways that you could do commercial real estate versus residential. Residential's, those of you watching, residential's, it's pretty much in the box. Commercial's there's a lot of different stuff. You just want to make sure. It's taken us a long time to get our network there as far as, nationally, and then funding nationally, and just having that network. It's just something to tap into. If that's something you want to do, great. If you didn't want to, I don't know, just watch your numbers, stick with your numbers. I'm a big numbers person. I'm not chasing the small cap rate stuff. I'm looking for, is it currently at its highest and best? Just like I was explaining before, like
simple question,
are the
right?
rents are the rents where they need to be? Maybe you're looking at something and it's a 7 cap rate, and you're like, no, or even 6, and you're like, that's not a high enough cap rate, meaning it's not producing enough money. Well, is it half full or half empty?
Yeah.
I mean, so you got to look at everything of it and of the opportunity. Make sure it's like. Make sure that you're looking at it from all different angles. Something like that, if that was the case, you could get a reduction in price. You could say, okay, I need you to guarantee me a year's worth of rents, Mr. Landlord, on these while I fix it up and lease it up myself. And there's so many different ways you could go about it. So part of it is like we could do a podcast every day for a week, easily getting into each different model. But you kind of just, it just depends on where you feel comfortable getting started. A lot of people get into like executive suite stuff, hair salons, things like that. I don't think are going away. I think if we go into a recession, this is what I think of, right? I'm new. Let's say I'm new. I'm going into the market, and I'm thinking like, what's recession proof? I feel pretty good about medical. also where people live. But the other is like, medical and hair salons, and people want to still take care of themselves. This showed the last recession. So having affordable suites that people could go and work and provide for their families is important. So I like the executive suite model. It's where I started, and I started at the bottom of the market last time, and I still feel comfortable that market will continue to stay. One of the big things that you might have to do is add water to the different suites, things like that, which is not the end of the world. But yeah, you just want to pay attention. Like, again, when I've worked hard to get what I have. I don't want to give it away, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to make a bad mistake. So I try to buy undervalue, and I try to do a value add, whether that value adds in like doing the heavy lifting as far as the facelift and getting tenants in, or, a combination of those things. It could just be getting the tenants, right? So anyways, again, you can't be scared of the hard work. So
Yeah, well, and I think you're completely right about residential real estate being, I mean, the most creative, I think, that it really gets on the residential side is on creative financing, seller financing type of stuff. There's ways of structuring that, but I think there's a lot more. It's a box. At the end of the day, it is a box. For what I can see is there's a lot more that can be done in the commercial space. That's huge. Yeah, man, thank you so much for everything that you're dropping. I know that. Let's talk about wrecking your education business. You have that going on. Also, you have a branch where you guys come in and then you work funding, right, for deals. If somebody wants to partner up with you guys, what would they have to look for? What's the first step? What's the process?
The big thing is we want to make sure that we're kind of careful on this, because when we first started this and we were doing the partnership program, my inbox was just inundated with stuff that was just like, okay, I can't even sift through all this. Like, we got to stop and actually do a timeout and teach people what we're looking for. Like, they need to know what we're looking for, and what qualifies as something that is worth taking on. So we teach people kind of how to underwrite deals and go after different deals. So we have webinars and we do like small trainings on that. And then we'll go through like we just did one yesterday, we worked with someone, and they don't have the earnest money to do the deal, but they found a good deal and they already have a buyer. So we're working on that one together to kind of bridge the gap. There's a few other pieces that we're missing, but anyways, if someone wants to, I would just say, go to our website and book a call. I think, I'm trying to think of what it is. Real estate KI. Hold on, I'll tell you what it is. Sorry.
We can drop it.
It's realestateki.com /getting started. All that does is schedule it for basically for myself, or it'd be for Trent or Bob,
So
one of us three.
It's a strategy call.
Well, yeah. So if that one's specifically is probably more for the commercial piece, but you could specify. But if you're looking at wanting to get started in commercial, that'd be a good place to start. Just have a conversation, see where you're at, what city you're at, kind of what we're seeing. Maybe you already have a deal. You're just trying to figure out how to reposition it and what's the highest, best use. We could have that conversation. If you want to partner on it, that's even better. We're more than happy to help do that if it makes sense. I mean, the biggest thing I think in commercial is, so we go through different asset classes and kind of how to underwrite them and how to back into cap rates and stuff like that. It's probably the most important thing. You just got to learn some basic fundamental things, and then if that's something you want to bust into, we're just seeing crazy high returns, and every time there's a shift in the market, right? So doing like the hotel conversions to apartments, I want to explain like what's happened. So 2020 was a basically dead year for travel. So you have all these hotels with single digit occupancy. Single digit, you guys, they're bleeding. So if travel is open back up, these people, yes, they may be, 50, 60, even 80, 90% occupied, but think about all the back stuff, how backed up they are, and how they need to be more liquid, and maybe they can't refinance right now, and all this other stuff. So being able to go in and look at that asset, maybe even just taking it over as a hotel, and we have partners that we work with that work on that specific model. And if we take it down, they can run that model through, or teach you how to run that model until it's repositioned with the city as apartments and things like that. So when we could get debt for it, once it's all basically get you a loan for it once it's all done with the city. There's just so many different ways to do it. We could get the debt prior to, and then do long-term debt. So there's short and long-term debt. So we have some really good funding partners. We have great partners in that space as well that can just execute and help take it over as apartments and help run it.
So basically, if somebody comes across an asset that's underperforming somehow, some way, bring it, and there's probably going to be a way to structure it.
Here's what I would say, because you kind of don't know what to look for,
right?
So I'm just going to be.
It's outside the box.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
I'm just going to be getting inundated with emails about here, what do you think of this?
Yeah.
I'd rather if you're serious, just call us and we could have a conversation about it, or inquire, and what we could do is just have a call with you, because you don't want to just start throwing everything at the wall. You want to know what you're looking at. So understanding that, if you're in fix and flips right now, you know what to look for, right? You know, I want to be, 60% of ARV, and then, you start backing into your numbers. There's a very similar model. It just depends on what asset class you're going after. So getting kind of a general overview of what to look for, taking some time, going through some sessions, I think would help. And I mean, if it's a good one, we'll literally partner with you. It's not uncommon. So,
and you also you rolled out a coaching program, right?
Our digital one, or
you have a digital coaching program. It's kind of, that's basically, it's what it is, right? It's an overview of everything that's commercial, that matters.
So we have that. We go through that. That actually just launched, but we spent 3 years doing that. It's Airbnb, fix and flip, and then we do the commercial.
Okay, I'll make sure to put the links on the show notes for that, so anybody who's interested. But yeah, man, I think it is a space that's not saturated like the rest of the stuff that we're used to. At least I know 99% of my audience is used to, because we all talk about these things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's just not a lot of people out there now. You see, people focus in on apartments and stuff like that, which is great. Which is, again, though, the margins in those have been condensed. That's why looking at hotels and motels and converting those is so attractive right now, because you could pick them up. It's a fractured industry right now. Yeah. So you follow market trends, and whatever industry's kind of getting beat up, like office, you could pick up and get 9 months no payments, right? So we're doing a lot of office conversions right now into multifamily. It's office is very inexpensive right now, depending on what area you're in. So, even talking to the lender, he's like, well, we're just not lending on office right now. I'm like, well, we're still executing on office, so if you choose to lend on it, great, but you don't have to right now. We're just getting seller financing. But anyways, if you have a track record too, they'll help fund it. But anyways, I would say this: if you're looking at or want to know more about it, just hit us up at that link that I said, schedule a call, and one of us will have a conversation with you about it if that's something that you want to look at getting into. I would recommend everybody that can at least have a conversation about it and understand, is this something I want to get into? Everybody's fighting over the same stuff right now, so you have less competition and bigger upside. To me,
it really comes down to that. That's the reality of it.
It's 100% the reality.
100%.
And here's the thing: a lot of people will watch this and go, oh, you know what? They just talked about it. Now their phone's going to go crazy. Most people will not inquire because they think everybody else is inquiring and that the opportunity's gone. I've been talking about this for years.
It's incredible the amount of people that don't take action, man, on opportunity.
So here's the thing also, you guys. So I stay under, like, 3 million is kind of my bucket, like, and under. And so really institutional money stays above 5 million. They hate going below that number. In fact, that number is growing right now. They're like, yeah, you know, I really don't want to go under 8 or whatever. So let's just call that 5. So if you're 3, I mean, you really have no competition.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm being sincere on that, unless it's a end user. So there's just not a lot of competition in this space, meaning that seller hasn't had his phone ringing or her phone ringing. It's one of those things, like, it's a perfect storm. Like, I talked to I hired a syndication coach years ago, showed him their space, and he was like, nobody's doing this. This is like, no one's in this particular space. Like, you're in a weird space. I love it, right? And that's when I realized, like, that's why, you know, because he works with people all over the country, but on different asset classes. He's like, you have no competition in your space, which is cool. Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's just nice not having a lot of competition. Now, on this building, I did have some competition, and I didn't chase the deal. I don't get emotionally attached to any of the stuff. Like, I let them run the price up, and I was like, I'm not chasing it. They tried to get me to. They were 3 doctors, and then they ended up falling out, and then they came back to me, and then I drove the price down and negotiated better terms. So anyways, just kind of food for thought. A lot of people will get stuff locked up and not execute too. So if you could be the person that executes, you're going to be your realtor's go-to person. And I'll tell you another thing that happens. When you guys buy residential, I'm going to tell you what happens. You have to provide proof of funds and all this other stuff. I've never been asked for proof of funds on commercial, ever.
That's crazy.
Ever. I on this property was the first time someone asked me for my credit. They didn't ask me for financials, but they asked me for my credit so they could run a background check and stuff on me. Yeah, I get it. You're technically lending to me. You're entitled to that.
Yeah.
But I was shocked at even that, right? Because I'm just, never been asked. So anyways, avoid half the time I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to get the money to buy the buildings anyways, right? So anyways, it works out. So there you go.
I love it, man. Yeah, it's definitely something that I think it's next level stuff, and it's a natural progression for most of the people that listen to my audience, at least. You know what I mean? I think it's a huge opportunity too. So hopefully people will follow the link and then find out more about it. And really, I mean, it's the opportunity is there. It'd be crazy not to at least check it out. You know what I mean? This is real stuff. It's real stuff. It's about as real as when you tell somebody who's in corporate about wholesaling. Like, oh, what? You're making money by wholesaling properties? Yeah.
Is that even legal?
Is that even legal? Yeah. I mean, this is what that kind of feels like when you haven't heard about it and you're not exposed to it.
No, I get it. I appreciate you letting me come on and talk about it. Like I didn't even talk about it the first probably half the time we were in business. Now, whatever, 5.5 years, so 3 years. We did somewhere in the middle.
It's opportunity, man.
Yeah. Someone was like, "Why aren't you teaching this?" This is like, I spoke about it, and then one of the students was like, well, is that a course that we could take? And I was like, well, not yet.
Well,
I guess
I haven't had time to record the damn thing.
Yeah. Well, selfish of me to just assume that people just didn't want to do it. And once we did it, we actually did our first training, and we had I'm not going to say, there was a mentor there, and that's his whole model now. Yeah. I helped him through his first executive suite. So it's kind of cool. Anyways, and now that's his
changing
model.
People's
he's
lives
on the East Coast, so. But yeah, he's doing it as just something. It's just, I don't know. Anybody could do it. If you're in real estate investing right now, even if you're not, you could get into that space fairly easy. So if that's something you want to do.
John, you're a beast, man. I respect everything that you're doing. I think, you have a very particular way of looking at things. I mean, there's so many things that I know we didn't tackle in this podcast. Maybe we can come back and then just hit them on the mental aspect, on the entrepreneur side of things. But I thought this is just so valuable that I wanted to emphasize the commercial side of things.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, but we can definitely, if you're game for it, do a follow-up episode on that.
Awesome.
There's one question that I like asking, and that's if you were walking down the street. Well, first off, before I get to that, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, what's the best way? If somebody wants to, I don't know, send you a message or
I know probably Instagram, John JOHN _Trautman TRAUTMAN. That's my handle. Just say reference you on there, and we'll figure it out. There's my contact information's on there too. So,
cool. And we'll drop that on the link on the show notes as well.
Perfect. I don't know our phone number. I'm probably not going to post my cell phone.
No, you're good.
Okay.
So, all right. Now, with that taken care of, if you were walking down the street and you ran into your 17-year-old self, what would you tell that kid? What would you tell little John?
Oh, man. Really, it's just believe in yourself. So I think that's such a from 17 to probably 22 was, a stretch time for me. It's kind of like where my dream space started to shrink, and so 17, just say, hey, everything's gonna be okay. Really, you got this, and. I don't know. Gosh, I could say a lot, I guess. How long do I have with my 17-year-old self to talk to him? I mean, there's no substitute for hard work. You got to get out there and dig and actually do the work. Surround yourself by positive people. And this is all stuff we hear, but it's so true. Like, surround yourself by people that you want to be like. And I would say more successful people, right? So you're constantly reaching up. Don't be scared to ask for help. Park the ego. One thing I learned,
Huge.
What's bigger, your ego or your bank account, right? Yeah. Your confidence is huge. Don't take opinions from people that haven't done shit. I see so many people take so much weight, like, well, I talked to my uncle and he thinks real estate's a bad idea. Really, what's your uncle do? I don't know. I don't want to talk about. I don't want to even name an industry just in case I offend somebody. But let's just say he's working for someone, like getting paid whatever. Versus you. This is your life. You get one crack at it, right? Time goes really, really fast. Some of you guys that that are watching this and hearing know what I'm talking about. Time starts clicking really quick. So the no one's showing up to save you, by the way. You're not going to, win the lotto. So you might as well create the lotto yourself. And again, if someone came to your house, this is a key piece. If someone came to your house and took their garbage and dumped it out constantly, every time they came over, they dumped their garbage out in your living room, you probably whip their ass, right? So why do we let that information that they want to dump on us, why do we let it in our heads, right? As a younger person, that used to happen. The more success you have, you become an influence versus influence. So people aren't going to try to say that crap to you. The more power, powers might not be the right word, but the more success you have, people will respect you, and they're not going to try to sway you into their negative way of thinking, right? It doesn't benefit you, and the faster that you could ditch that stuff, the better off you are. I'll just say this, I went through like a stretch when I was between 19 and 20 where all I did was listen to positive stuff. Like I didn't watch TV, I didn't do anything but just take in positive information that I still regurgitate to this day. That's how obsessed I was. I realized I had to brainwash myself. Yes, the way that I was thinking was so negative. I needed to ditch all those old beliefs because, I'm being taught by people that haven't been there and done that. And so you get naysayers and you get all this negative stuff, and I just needed to ditch it. And once I did that, just stuff started coming easy. The ego is another thing. Always be willing to learn and ask questions. Don't posture like you got it all figured out. That's unattractive anyways. No, I just mean like, I don't mean, I just mean it's like people don't want to work with you, right? You want to attract people to want to work with you. And by being open and being honest and being sincere about it and wanting to help people, you'll attract more. It's the abundance comes more by giving than taking, right? So the faster you could get your help out there, it will come back 10 times quicker. Anyways, that's what I have. Well, I appreciate you having me on here.
John, it's been a blast, man. I appreciate everything that you've shared with us. It's way more than I thought we were going to be, tapping into. So yeah, thank you so much for that. Thank you for putting it out there for my audience. And yeah, I mean, if you don't reach out, I think you're missing out on a big opportunity that's out there, especially if you're in the real estate investment industry, right?
Well, thanks for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity and love you, man. Thanks.
Love you too, bro. All right. Stay focused. You got this. Boom.